Lincoln, thank you very much for a most enlightening talk on how a company can be both state-controlled and deliver superior shareholder returns. I have a few questions that occurred to me that I'd like to address to you, if I may. The first is to flesh out a little bit more that dichotomy between state control on the one hand and superior service and increasing shareholder returns on the other. Can you share with us a few additional flavors of how you've been able to make that happen in terms of corporate governance, organization, etc.?
I think, Osmond, one of the first comment is state control, enhancement of service, shareholder return. These things do not conflict with each other. We believe that enhancing service also enhances shareholder return. Enhancement of service allows us to carry more passengers, would encourage more passengers to use our network. That enhances profitability. So we see this as a virtuous circle. It's a virtuous circle of service quality improvement, knowing what our customer wants and requires, delivering that, and hence delivering value also to our investors.
Thank you very much. On another theme, as you map out your growth, do you work with city planners and municipalities about the construction of new neighborhoods? Is that a cooperation that you also embark upon?
Yes, we do. The Hong Kong government, being the policy maker, decides where to put the rail lines in Hong Kong. We work with Hong Kong government in looking at what we call the alignment, details of how the line shapes, and look at what opportunities there are to build new towns along those alignments. So we work very closely with government as our policy maker. We also work closely with the district, who are interested in looking at issues like development, scale of development, environmental protection. So we work with many different stakeholders in the implementation and building of a rail line.
Thank you very much, Lincoln. Completely different topic. There must be a very positive environmental impact of the work that you do. Probably difficult to measure in terms of cars not used or something like that, but are there any anecdotal indications that that you've seen, that you've had commissioned or what have you?
If you look at Hong Kong government, our policymaker, when they look to develop or build a new rail line, they look at economic benefit rather than just financial benefit. One of the factors in economic benefit would be time saved in commuting. Other factors would be health-related, which is environmental-related. So many of these factors, including environment, plays a very key and important role in the decision on how and where to build a particular rail line. I think one of the things that is interesting in Hong Kong is that 90% of our commuters actually use public transport. The other 10% would use taxis or private cars. That means the total private car fleet in Hong Kong is only about 500,000 vehicles in a city of around 7 million. Wow. To give you an example or comparison, Beijing, which, as you know, is the capital of China, every month they approve the equivalent of 10,000 cars just to keep a population of roughly 20 million people moving. So by having an efficient mass transportation system, what the government has managed to do is to reduce congestion, reduce pollution, which ultimately adds value to the city and the country at large.
So I guess there's a real reinforcing cooperation with the policymakers and yourselves, which makes it a stronger path going forward for the community and for yourself.
I think that's right, Osmond. And if one looks at you mentioned some of the ingredients of success. I think for MTR, some of our ingredients for success as a listed company, but also with the government as a major shareholder, is corporate governance. I think not only do we practice a high standard of corporate governance, our major shareholder, Hong Kong government, also abides by a high level of corporate governance. It is through that corporate governance, which includes the independence of management, it includes the participation only at board level, and it also includes the fact that they very much act as independent of MTR. I think those factors have been critical in the success of MTR.
As you look towards international expansion, what factors do you bear in mind? You're in a very diverse set of cities outside of your home base. How do you look at that question? In our international expansion, we're very focused in certain geographies. First and foremost, just north of Hong Kong, China gives us lots of opportunities. Many cities in China are building rail systems, and many cities in China are looking for a sustainable financial model for them to enhance and continue this construction. I think beyond China, beyond the mainland of China, we're active now in Australia. We'll continue to grow our footprint there. We're active in the Scandinavian countries, as well as in the UK. We have made certain toehold approaches in the Middle Eastern market, and therefore Turkey as a market will be a market that, if the opportunities are available, would be opportunities that we'll look at. Let me, thank you very much for that, Lincoln, very, very enlightening again. Let me open it to the floor. Questions from the audience? Sir. Perhaps you can identify yourself and then ask your question. I'm
from Bangladesh. I'm managing director and CEO of CD Brokerage. In Bangladesh. Yes, thank you. I'm from Bangladesh. I'm managing director and CEO of CD Brokerage. My name is Kondokar Asadul Islam. I really appreciate the way you're talking confidently. How you bring the bondage, PPP, like private-public partnership. In our country, our experience, not that good. There is a bureaucratic process we go through. So how you make a bondage, private-public relationship? Thank you.
Although the model that we use predominantly in Hong Kong is this rail and property model, we actually, in many other countries, particularly in China, we operate using the public-private partnership, the PPP approach. We work very closely with municipal and central government to enable us to participate using that PPP approach. I think for a PPP approach, what we need is a structure that allows the entity, in this case ourselves and our fellow investors, to have an opportunity to make a financial return, but at the same time have a judicial structure that looks at the various contracts that are put into place. With these PPP structures, they are very long in duration. Many of them are 25, 30 years. And what we look for is certainty in terms of legal structure that allows for the operation of that entity over that period of time.
John, at the back.
Hi, John Powers from Stanford. Lincoln, does the operational combined with the real estate model work outside of Hong Kong, or is that a unique byproduct of your relationship with the Hong Kong government?
John, that's an excellent question. The answer is, to date, we have not been able to migrate that particular model outside of Hong Kong. To date, what we're doing outside of Hong Kong, we'd use different models away from that real and property model. One of the things that we've been trying to do is to migrate it into the mainland of China, because of certain regulatory and legal constraints on the allocation and bilateral grant of land rights, we have not been able to migrate it into the mainland of China as yet. However, what we find is that many cities in China look at the advantages which that model can fulfill, and they are very interested, albeit today the legal framework is not quite there.
I think there was a question at the front, or?
Yes, thank you, Lincoln. I think this was fascinating. And I also thank Osman Bey for this. A very simple question. Is there any hurdle rate that you use to decide whether to go or not with a project, with and without the property bonus, let's say? What are the rates that you are using?
Yes, there are hurdle rates that we use to assess the financial viability of projects for MTR. At the time of our listing, what was stated is that, particularly in Hong Kong, we look for hurdle rates, which is our weighted average cost of capital, our WACC, plus a spread of between 1% and 3%. So that would be the hurdle that we would assess projects against, our weighted average cost of capital plus a spread of 1 to 3%. That is with property, correct. So we're taking, for that type of return, we're taking the risk on both the building and the operation of the rail, as well as some risk on the property side. The WACCs that analysts that look at our company, the type of WACCs that they are using or they are assessing is somewhere between 7 and 8.5%.
Other questions? Well, at this point in the proceedings, therefore, it just remains for me, Lincoln, to thank you very much for having come here for us all the way from Hong Kong to share with us your most interesting experience of the last 10 years, where you've truly driven and created a very unique global leader in your field. Congratulations and thank you very much.
Thank you.